Welcome to Veteran Resource Podcast, where you will meet nonprofit organizations focused on improving the lives of veterans and their family members. Here is your host, Jeremy Paris.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 99 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Paris. There are a lot of military members who are transitioning out and who have clearances. And on today's podcast, we talk to an expert in helping veterans transition into cleared jobs. The mission of Contract Professionals, Inc. is to be the premier source of technical professionals serving major and emerging industries. A highly driven, world-class senior executive, Jim Cowper has more than 30 years in the staffing business with an unparalleled ability to create repeatable customer retention and demonstrated success. He has produced top-line revenue in excess of $2 billion. Jim began his career in the staffing industry at Contract Professionals, Inc. in 1983 until 1986, laying the groundwork for the success the company enjoys today. With more than $50 million in revenue last year alone, CPI is poised for significant growth in 2016 and 2017. Jim returned to CPI in the last quarter of 2014 with a sincere determination to be a lightning rod for revitalization after making his own significant contributions to the staffing industry. All right, let's jump right into the interview. Jim, welcome to the Veteran Resource Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm outstanding. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So I wanted to find out a little bit about your background first.
Sure. I've been in the technical staffing business for, hate to say, 30 plus years. I actually started working for Manpower Temporary Services when I was going to college, and we did the traditional day labor. And that was very interesting doing that in the late 1970s in the city of Detroit. And the thing I learned about the business is that the customer had an earnest need for people to execute whatever their job might be, and the individuals had an earnest need for a job. And putting the two together was actually pretty fun and pretty fulfilling. And even doing day labor, someone to come and unload a truck for a day or 2 days or a week, you learned the people. And the people got up in the morning, went to work, in exchange for a paycheck, and I liked it. And so when I graduated from school, I went to work for a company. Manpower did traditionally way back then, pretty much just temporary labor. I went to work for a company called Butler Service Group out of New Jersey. They were owned by Butler Aviation, and they did technical staffing, so engineering stuff, mostly around the military. And so I started my business career there, and left and went to, it's kind of an ironic story, left and went to this startup company called Contract Professionals, or CPI, where I'm the president today. And I worked there for 3 years, and it was a startup and had a lot of fun and had some great success on the defense side and the auto side here in Detroit. And back then, the automotive industry, you had to convince them that they should use technical temporary talent because their mantra was, we hire our own and we don't use temporary talent. But they started to, and I had great success. I left CPI after 3 years, went to work for a company called TAC Worldwide, headquartered in Boston, again, privately held. When I joined the firm, about $250 million in annual sales. We grew the business to a little north of $1 billion over the next 25 years, and had a great amount of fun. Worked again on the technical side in pretty much every industry. TAC we had offices in every city in America and in the UK. And so you name the industry: biopharm, oil and gas, technology, banking, automotive, defense. We supplied into all of those industries. So I got to work with all of those great companies across the nation. Had a ton of fun. I retired, kind of sat at home for a few years, and called my partner and the founder of Contract Professionals, Steve York, and said, I'm ready to go back to work. Steve is exactly 10 years older than I am. I said, it's time for you to learn how to be semi-retired, and I'm ready to go back to work. And so I came back to CPI 2 years ago, and I kind of teased that we're a 33-year-old startup. And and came back, and we put some different technology in place, and so we're back at it. And CPI was founded on the defense side. Steve is a veteran of the Air Force, so we're a veteran-owned small business. And our biggest customer is General Dynamics. That's what birthed Contract Professionals, and is still our biggest customer today. We've mixed the automotive in. We've added Ford and some other automotive suppliers, and really excited about our core history and mission of CPI is that we place a lot of veterans. We actively recruit on the military bases. Our customers like General Dynamics obviously have a high value for veterans. So whether they're new veterans coming out of the military or folks who have been out of the military for quite some time but continue to like to work in more of the defense sector than the public sector, we do that, and we do it well. We probably recruit and hire north of 100 veterans a year. And they're great folks to work with. They're very dedicated. We had one today that we're going to put to work at Ford that's coming from Florida to Michigan. And they're like, okay, I'll be there in 5 days, because they know how to deploy and they know how to rearrange themselves and get to a job quickly. Where in the public sector, it's more likely, well, can I have a month to get there, because they're just not as
agile.
Exactly, as agile, and not worried about where do I get my hair cut or how do I find a new dentist, as much as let's get to work and get the job done. And thankfully our public sector customers, Ford is a great example. Ford is probably one of the best supportive veteran hiring companies in America. And they see the value of the leadership skills of veterans. They see the independent skills in their work diligence, and it's rewarding when we can match veterans into the public sector companies, and they see the value. That's great fun too.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I wanted to have you on, was the fact that you are focusing on helping out veterans who are getting out of the military, they're transitioning out. And I know I personally have had this experience where I came out as a cleared professional. I was transitioning out, and I was able to move right into a job that was paying really good money at the time. But I was able to move right over in, and there was other people that I was working alongside that were having not as easy of a time getting out and getting their the resumes able to speak to what it was that they could do, and then be able to get into some of these cleared positions.
Yes, that's a challenge. And one of the things that we recruit actively at the military bases, and especially Fort Hood, because it's the largest. And I went down there and we met with a retired 4-star general, General Thurmond, and a retired 3-star general, General Funk. And we met with the leadership at Fort Hood and talked about there isn't a database. The United States government and the military does not have a database where a transitioning soldier can go and put their beyond their DD 214 and who they are and what their own MOS codes are and how they would apply to public sector. And the generals are very interested in that. Both of those generals had actually led Fort Hood in portions of their careers. That it isn't an easy transition for the soldiers to come out. And we unfortunately haven't found a solution yet. Actually, here in Lansing, Michigan, our state capital, I went and testified in front of the state House of Representatives about this portion of the struggle to find us as a hiring entity, and we're just one of many that are looking for these transition soldiers, and the soldier looking to get out and land in a safe and quick public sector job. The match is still not where it should be, and we're going to continue to be vocal about that and look for various ways that we can continue to help make it easier for the soldier, more beneficial for public sector, because the public sector does see value in the transitioning soldier into their industries and their companies, and we're just going to keep fighting that fight. And scenarios like this today, with me able to have a voice with you to talk about a small piece of what is the struggle and the hiring nature in today's world, is important. It's valuable to the soldiers, and it's meaningful to the industries that's looking to hire them.
Yes, and the answer might not always come from the government for how to fix this problem. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations out there like 4Block. They'll work with veterans that are getting out and help to train them for here's how you translate what it is you did into a resume that businesses are going to understand. Then they also work with businesses and help them to better understand veterans. So teaming up with different nonprofit organizations might be a good solution for your company.
You're exactly right. And when we were doing the Lansing visit, the VFW was there. And what I wasn't aware of, shame on me, is the VFW gets a fair amount of training funds that is completely different than anything that we think about in the recruitment world. And they were very open to how could they work with us to try and again create another funnel, another way that whether it be a transitioning soldier or soldiers who have been out and just really haven't found their niche, really haven't found the job or career they'd really like. They may be employed, but not really employed in where they'd like to be. And that's another whole part, opportunity yet struggle, is to find all these organizations. It's so highly fragmented into who's helping and where, and how does that fit into what we at CPI are doing or any other company out there looking to hire. Certainly we're a very small, dot on that huge map.
Yeah. And that's, of course, why I started this podcast, was because it is so fragmented. There isn't a good place to find who are the organizations out there and what can they do for me. So that's why I'm interviewing them.
Exactly. And kudos to you for doing such.
Thank you. So you're primarily focusing on cleared positions, is that correct?
Well, no, both. We have the luxury with, depending on what the client is looking for. Sometimes they don't need to be cleared at all, which is great, because then that opens it up to both public sector and certainly ex-military. Sometimes they do need to be cleared day one, and as we know in today's world, that's a little more challenging because you can't carry a clearance between jobs like you used to be able to do in the days of the past. So we can process the clearance. Sometimes the client will allow us to place the individual in a job that doesn't require clearance until we get them cleared. And then, of course, we're looking for straight, top secret, cleared individuals right from day one, which again is much more difficult to find in today's economy.
Absolutely, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Then you get into, polys if they've got a full scope poly, or will this one transfer from one agency to another? Different things like that.
Right, and CSI, and we just had a conversation the other day with a tracked and wheeled vehicle prime, and they were asking the questions about a top secret poly or a top secret. It might have worked in the Army, and how is that different than what they might have done in the Air Force, and how do we screen for that? And quite frankly, that was something that was new for us, is that we're JPAS cleared, so even JPAS doesn't allow us to see things that the CIA or the FBI may have in cleared databases that we would never have privilege to. So even inside of the person has these clearances, they may or may not apply to what the need might be. It's more complicated than it sounds.
Absolutely. If somebody has a clearance coming out, let's say that they have just a secret clearance, which is a lot of times the case, but they qualify otherwise for one of these other positions, are you helping them to advance their clearance on up to a top secret, for instance?
Absolutely. And the way it works in today's world is we just need the sponsorship from the hiring company. So as long as the company says this individual has a secret and we would like to move them from secret to top secret, we process all of that. That's part of what we do as a vendor. And that process is relatively seamless. If they're secret already, going to top secret's not too bad. It's funny, the government budgets go in ebbs and flows, and so the cleared entity of the government may be in the part of a budget renewal, and then clearances can back up, and then they get their budget, and then the clearances get cleared quicker. So timing can be interesting too, as to how fast we can get it done. Our side of it is relatively straightforward. The government on the other side processing their part of the process can be quite lengthy. So sometimes it can be done as quickly as 30 days. Sometimes it can take 6 months. It just depends on where that person is and what the cycle of the government and what their backlog is.
Absolutely. For me, it took 2 years for my clearance to go through.
Wow.
And I was still in the military at the time when I came to Fort Meade. They sent me here and they said, okay, you're going to have to get a clearance. And I had no idea like what it was. I didn't care about it. I was like, yeah, whatever, sure. And went through the whole difficult process of the SF-86 at the time.
Oh.
And then I forgot about it. And I went back about doing my day-to-day job in the S1. And 2 years later, as I was about to get out of the military, I think I had 8 months left or something like that. They said, your clearance came in. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? They said, oh, you're cleared now. You can go and play with the big boys. And
now here's a great example. You're in the military, you're seeking clearance. I'm a civilian, never served, came back to CPI as the president and started my process for top secret, not go to secret first, go right to top secret, filled out the, 40, 50 page survey
yeah.
of questions. My goodness, how many questions? And quite frankly, I wasn't as detailed as I thought I should be in answering. They want to know everywhere you've traveled. I'm digging out passports, and I had traveled to India several times, and I had gone to England and to Germany and to Spain and to Mexico on vacation numerous times. So I had traveled out of the country a little bit. Anyway, long story short, I answer all of these questions, and I thought, oh my goodness, they're going to come back with just, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. They came back and asked me one clarifying question. From the time I sent that application in to the time they were validating in person my references, because people were calling and telling me, was incredibly short, and I got my top secret in, I want to think, inside 100 days.
Wow.
So how does that happen when I had no previous clearance? I had been screened by the banking industry because I'm on the board of a very large credit union. So I had been fingerprinted and things like that for the banking industry. But so there's some government record on the other side, but that has nothing to do with top secret clearances in the Department of Defense. So just goes to show you, I must have got caught in a time where the budget was new and there was funding to get things done quicker. And, maybe because you were in the service and no one was in that immediate of a hurry to get you the clearance, you went slower. Just goes to show you,
right.
It's not an exact science.
So you mentioned you're in Michigan, is that correct?
Correct, in Michigan.
What geographic areas do you normally cover?
Well, we have currently, we were just having a review the other day with our tax advisors, that time of year, unfortunately, and we do business in 30 U.S. states. So we are registered in 30 of those states with tax ID numbers, and then we deploy for the military fairly regularly to Afghanistan. We do deploy to Kuwait when we have customers who need. So we can deploy internationally. That's not a problem for us. And we've done things in Alaska and Hawaii with our defense customers. We don't have anything in those two states right now, but so pretty broad. As a small business, we are able to employ in quite a broad area.
Oh, great. And what technologies are hot right now?
Well, it's funny, embedded software with clearance, that's as I tease, my phrase is always, that's a tough putt. And the other side of it is amazingly still all of the technology around for our clients, wheeled and tracked vehicles and the various maintenance and upgrades, General Dynamics just did a complete firing mechanism upgrade to the M1 tank. And I was out in Fort Hood and was actually able to see it. And the vehicle, they upgraded the entire electrical system to 48 volts. So very interesting that you take an old vehicle, the M1 tank, and completely upgrade the fire mechanisms and then go from, 12 volts to 48 volts, which makes the thing completely different should they lose regular turbine power inside the tank. And even because 48 volts is very dangerous, All of the controls had to be painted different colors, and they were actually doing training on how to use the new vehicle with all this upgraded electronics, and i.e. don't get electrocuted because this thing has really changed. And it was very, very, very exciting when you can see those things firsthand. So there's a lot of technology that goes into, I guess, what we would call older vehicles. And then we're working with Oshkosh Truck, and they have the new JLTV, which will be the new, regular ground Humvee replacement, if you will, vehicle for the military. So it's pretty interesting to see that. It's going to be smaller and lighter, yet have very sophisticated fire controls and obviously, security with Kevlar for, explosions, the underside of the vehicle to protect the warfighter. So it's interesting. You could say, well, it's still a wheeled or tracked vehicle, but the technology that goes into them, some are hybrid. When you look at some of these huge vehicles that Oshkosh makes, and they're hybrids, and you go, well, makes sense that it'd be hybrids, but that technology is ever changing.
Wow. When a veteran is transitioning out of the military, you've got a pretty big window usually of when you think you're getting out. For other people, that window is not so big. But at what point do you think veterans should already be looking for a new job?
Our advice is a year. Two things can happen. One, we learned this by working with one of our customers. If a veteran is slated to, let's say, okay, this is March. So March of 2018 is when they would come out. If they have a certain skill set and there's an outside company that wants it, there's a way to reach in, and that soldier can transition out sooner. They have to get sign off from base commander, et cetera, but it's possible, and we've done it. So it's not necessarily, well, I'm not getting out till next March, so why would I worry about it? There's a possibility you could get out sooner. So that's one avenue. The other avenue is, like we talked about, there isn't a database that you just go log into and put your resume out there. Most soldiers don't even have a resume, and quite frankly, struggle with, well, how would I write one?
Right.
They don't even understand the value of the training they've had in the military and how to articulate that into a resume that someone on the outside would say it and go, aha, I know what that is. I know why that's valuable to me as a public sector company. So a year. We even go to the job fairs, and the soldiers come through the job fair, and then, well, I'm not getting out for 6 months. Why do I need to worry about it now? And we try to explain to them, no, you should be worrying about it now. Something else that I don't think the public sector knows, and I learned this, is when a transitioning soldier comes out, the military will relocate them one time when they come out. So if they don't have a job or haven't worked on having a job, they have a tendency to get relocated to what was home 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 20 years ago, wherever it might have been. And that might not be the best place for them to get relocated. If they're working on a job in advance and they have a line on a job, then the military can relocate them to that city or town if it's not where home was. And that's important because it's basically a free relo. And I don't even know if the soldiers necessarily know that this is available to them. So a year. Short story, short answer. I would suggest a year, because if they actually struck lightning and found something really interesting, there is a high possibility they could be released from military service sooner, unless their skill is so critical to that base commander that he or she would say, I'm sorry, I can't release you. But I think for the most part, we have not had too much trouble with getting the person released.
That's great advice. And also, one of the other things is if they have a lot of time where they already get a position, but they still have many months to go before they actually get out, it might take that long to get the clearance transferred or upgraded or something along those lines. So having that extra time would definitely help.
Absolutely. It's the luxury of a more lead time is invaluable.
So is there anything that I might have missed that you think could help veterans out with transitioning out of the military and finding that perfect job?
There is an interesting thing that's happening, and it's interesting that it was born out of the state of Michigan, the city of Detroit. There's an organization, and I'll give the tagline first, and then I'll speak it out, is NVBDC.org, National Veterans Business Development Council.org, was born here in Detroit. And their mantra is to certify veteran-owned companies of any size, with a specific focus on companies that would grow larger than what the veteran-owned criteria allows. And many people don't know that if a veteran-owned business gets too large, they can lose their federal veteran certification because the federal government put a cap on each industry. I don't understand why. It makes no sense. And we've had these conversations, and it's just something the government did. So, but the key thing is this organization has numerous private sector companies, Kellogg, AT&T, 3M, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, Detroit Edison, and Detroit Edison will take it to every other power company in the United States. These large Fortune 500s are becoming sponsors to NVBDC, and then they're telling their supply base, if you want to work with us and you're a veteran-owned business, you must be certified through this NVBDC organization. Okay, great. What does that mean for a soldier transitioning out? Those companies are veteran hire friendly. So that website, nvbdc.org, will list all of these sponsor companies. So as a soldier transitioning out, you might say, well, gee, I would have never thought that I would go to 3M or to AT&T or to Kellogg. Interesting company, Kellogg, right? Kellogg's transportation and logistics challenges, as you can imagine, for what Kellogg does to move their product around the world. So if I'm a soldier coming out that I have a lot of logistic experience, then Kellogg could be an interesting place for me. So that's just something like we talked about before, how highly fragmented the hiring on transitioning soldiers is, and what organizations help and what don't. They would help on how to write a resume or how to position the transitioning soldier to make their value and skill set known to potential people to hire. So NVBDC is just another example where, and it's growing quickly. I mean, just in the last month, we probably have 5-6 Fortune 100 companies, and until they officially sponsor, I can't name them, basically the who's who of technology companies that are going to officially sponsor and endorse NVBDC as their hiring veteran-owned entity. There's another company, and these are around the country. We have it here in Michigan called VetBiz, VETBIZ. And this individual who runs Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana, VetBiz helps veterans who think they might want to start their own business. And they will coach and counsel them, and this is funded through the SBA, Small Business Administration, to help veterans coming out thinking, I'd like to start my own deal. I worked for a big company, i.e. the United States Army, or whatever part of the government they worked for, and maybe I want to do something on my own. Maybe I have this very unique skill that I learned in the military that transfers, and I would like to start on my own. So, and VetBiz is around the country. They're broken up into regions and sectors, so there's going to be a VetBiz in pretty much every state in the country. So two things that people might not know about that I happen to work very closely with both these organizations that are ways for veterans. And one of the things we do in the recruitment industry is we call it reverse recruiting. So I need a job. Okay. Who is veteran hire friendly? Ooh, AT&T or Kellogg or Ford Motor Company or 3M or the Federal Reserve of Chicago or any of these companies I mentioned, and there's numerous of them. Reverse engineer, that company is touted themselves as veteran friendly, then I'm going to go there to seek a job because that's what they're touting is a part of their business mission. That makes the path a little easier, not simple, but a little easier. And they're large organizations. Large organizations have diverse locations that might work well for a transitioning soldier, and usually very, very diverse skill needs, which might work for a transitioning soldier.
Very cool. And if a veteran getting out wants to get in contact with CPI to get helped out there, what is the best way for them to do that?
The best way is our website. Is we have a very user-friendly website to be able to upload a resume or then call us. So the website is www.cpijobs.com, and that will take you directly to us. They can apply online, or they certainly can call to any of our offices, and we will be happy to speak directly. So cpijobs.com is the website, and in today's world, that's the easiest way to do it. and we would be happy to work with anybody and counsel them in any way we can, whether it be themselves or family members or the spouse of a soldier. However it works, we would be happy to help in any way.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Jim. There's a lot of great information for people that are getting out of the military, and I know that there's a good amount of them that have clearances or that are pursuing jobs in the cleared space. So I'm very happy that you were able to come on.
Well, and again, I want to thank you for what you do every day, because this is just another key way for people to learn. And if you're not doing these podcasts, you're not spending the time to interview companies like CPI, then that's just another gap in this highly fractured space of how do we help veterans transition into their next part of their career. And we know that they have earned that right, and we should work as diligently as we can to help them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jim, you have a great day. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Veteran Resource Podcast. As always, make sure you go and check out the show notes. You can find those at veteranresourcepodcast.com/099. And while you're there, up at the top, you're going to see a yellow bar going across the top. It's asking for your email address. If you would like to get more information on a regular basis about what we have going on, go ahead and put your email address in there and subscribe. All right, that is all I have for you today. I'll be back again for a very special episode 100.